Did you know that we can find sociopaths and psychopaths as early as 5 or 6 years old? We can do this by several physical traits that almost all serial killers have in common, as well as doing scans in the brain that tell us if there's a glucose serotonin imbalance. Okay? They deem this unethical, so they don't do it. Because those people could be treated completely different. And being a sociopath or a psychopath is not illegal. It's when you cross the threshold to what most people know them as serial killers. Okay? Not every psychopath and not every sociopath is going to be a serial killer. These people are mostly pretty toxic in their life and in the world that surrounds them. But that's not a criminal to be a crappy person or a very aggressive person, okay? There are several physical traits you can look for. Here's a list of 23 of them. You can pause this video if you want to, because this list is going to go away real quick. I'm going to talk about 5 of the ones that you can see real quick, okay? The first one is called Sampuku eyes, or what's called the 3 white eyes. It's where you can see the whites of somebody's eyes on their left side, their right side, and underneath. In some rare cases, you can see it above the pupil, but if you notice right now, you can only see the left and right side white. You can't see it underneath. A famous example of a celebrity that has this is Aubrey Plaza, and she is known for her cynical, dry humor, which is another thing that is shared amongst sociopaths and psychopaths, is a very, very dark, cynical, dry humor. Okay, the next physical trait you can look for is a simian line on somebody's hand. Everybody has this line that goes right above, above your palm, kind of below your fingers. If this line goes all the way across, that is a heavily common trait that all serial killers and sociopaths have. Most people's goes about 3/4 of the way before it tapers down. Next is enlarged canines, and I already know I'm going to get the comments in the videos. I have the enlarged canines. If you have a couple of the traits, it's not a big deal. But they say if you have more than 5 of these 23 traits, that you are definitely on the scale of being a sociopath or a psychopath to some degree. The more of these traits you have, the more likely you are to be like the next Ted Bundy, okay? Now, the next thing is the toes. The 3rd toe is even with the 2nd toe. Scientifically, genetically, your toes are supposed to staircase down. Some people have a 2nd toe that's longer than their big toe. That just means you have a type A personality. But having a 3rd toe that's even with your 2nd toe can mean that you are on the course to have one of these traits here. The next one is going back to the hand. If you do your fingers like this, your pinky finger with all your other fingers should be going straight up and down. But anybody who has a curved inward pinky finger, where their pinky finger kind of curves back in towards the other 4, that is another thing on here. This list, once again, like I said, go back and pause it if you want to read through all those 23 traits. It's up there. It's actually a really neat read. They did this study back in the 70s all the way to the 90s, where they actually went around to all the prisons and we studied all the serial killers that we had, like in jails and stuff. And they found that they had a ton of physical traits in common. Now, a lot of people say, well, like, if we can spot this, why shouldn't we do something about it? It's because it is not a crime to be a sociopath or a psychopath, okay? It's just, you should have your flags up when you know these people that have all these traits, okay? We have other mental disabilities and physical handicaps that share common traits, and we acknowledge that. But there's a fine line of why science doesn't want to acknowledge something that could be viewed so objectively. Like if you for sure got scanned when you were 6 years old and a scientist said, hey, that kid's a psychopath. Do you think his parents would treat him the same? His family would treat him the same? People would be afraid of him? They don't want to put that label out there, okay? Now, what does a psychopath mean exactly scientifically? It means that they have this glucose serotonin imbalance. So, guys, if you didn't know this, your body provides you with glucose, okay? It actually goes to the stomach. A lot of mental disabilities actually come from the stomach if you didn't know that. So glucose will go down to the stomach. It will actually help with produce serotonin, and it will break down all the stress in your life, all the the anger that you have, the anguish. People who don't have that, it just builds and builds and builds. Well, eventually it bubbles up, and they just feel like they're going to explode. And they have to do something extreme to make their brain produce serotonin to have that release, okay? Your adrenaline junkie buddies that like to go bungee jumping and skydiving, they're not much different than a psychopath or a sociopath, okay? Because that's their way of release. They have to do some extreme measure to make their brain release serotonin, okay? While your other people might go down the route of being a very violent person, a serial killer, another type of criminal. They have to do some kind of extreme thing to get that brain to make that serotonin. Important keynote there. I talked about how like glucose goes to the stomach and it produces serotonin and all this stuff. Okay. Serial killers, because they don't have that, are also known to have extremely bad acid reflux. Like, because that system ain't working the right way, they are known to get really bad heartburn and acid reflux. So keep that in mind if somebody else has those physical traits. Now, this gene is actually called the MAOA gene, and you can test for it yourself. You can go get tested. You can buy a kit to test for it. 99% of society does not have this gene. But if you have that gene, doesn't mean you're guaranteed to be a serial killer. But it does mean that you shouldn't be around sharp objects very often when you're upset. Thing we're going to talk about with the mindset of known serial killers, okay? a male serial killer has been known, which female serial killers are very, very, very rare. A male serial killer is a lot less picky on his victims, okay? It's more of a, it's convenient almost. Where they have proven that female serial killers, once they have made their mind up on a target and once they have picked a target, there is nothing that is going to get them to divert from that target until that target is gone. Female serial killers are a whole different breed. They're very calculated, they're very cold, and they almost never do it directly. Have you all heard about that lady in Arkansas that kidnapped her own adult daughter? All right, we're going to ski down this mountain during this video, though, so just hold on tight, okay? So her name was Tamara Hanby, and her daughter is a mentally disabled adult that lives at home, and she coordinated this with her caretaker and 2 other individuals to pretend to be associates with Luke Bryan and lure her out of her home so they could kidnap her. Why were they doing this? Well, she claims that it's because that they wanted to teach her a lesson to not talk to online strangers after they had saw that she was communicating with people she did not know online. So how else would you scare an adult to not talk to online strangers, right? Other than absolutely pretending to kidnap them by coaxing them out of their house and then tying them up and then driving them to a field and then tying her to a tree and then just leaving her there. Because that's exactly what they did. That's exactly what happened. Now, the plot, supposedly by Tamara Hanby, the mother that was arrested, was that they were going to tie her to the tree, and she was going to come save the day and teach her the lesson that, see, this is why you don't talk to strangers. But the kidnappers, the would-be kidnappers, which is actually her caretaker, took her to the wrong field. So after being tied up to that tree for a while, she was able to free herself. And then she ran to a random house and beat on their door and screamed that she had been kidnapped and she had escaped. At this point, the police were called and then she was located. Now, there's a lot of people out there saying that that was never the plan. So I don't know what the court documents received. This is a pretty new case. This happened back in December. So a lot of people are out there speculating, like, did she just say that was the plan because the girl was able to free herself and then, get to somebody that could call the police? Was the plan actually just to leave her out there and make it seem like she was abducted by somebody online? Because she's only able to say this story now because it's all came out. Who's to say if they'd have never found the girl, she'd have never been able to free herself from that tree. If no one was able to ever locate her, was she just going to say, like, oh my gosh, it looks like there's a paper trail online where my daughter's talking to somebody and they coaxed her and she was kidnapped? That's where there's a fine line, because no one can definitively say that now, because at the end of the day, a crime's a crime. You can have the good intentions that you want to. That's pretty messed up to traumatize somebody who's already got a mental disability and kidnap them in a violent, aggressive way. So here's the charges that she's been charged with. So she's actually been charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and abuse of an adult, endangerment of an impaired person, 3rd-degree battery, 2nd-degree terrorist domestic threatening. Happy trails, folks. Here we go. So guys, today we're going to be talking about all the dark, mysterious deaths that have happened around the Pokemon series. I'm here with Dustin with Fume Tattoo because today we're getting a Pokemon tattoo while I'm telling these stories. So we're getting this Sassy Gengar Doflamingo crossover right here on the calf. Once again, we're at Fume Tattoo in Shawnee, Oklahoma. So you might not know it, but Pokemon has an extremely dark history. It is the highest grossing franchise of all time, making more than Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and Harry Potter all combined, almost $300 billion to date. All right, so we've got the outline done. Now, getting into this dark, creepy stuff of the Pokemon, going with the Gengar theme here, the first really weird thing that's ever happened in the series that led to some deaths and some people being hospitalized was what's called Lavender Syndrome, which was when the original Game Boy games came out back in 1996 in Japan. There's a town where there's a bunch of ghost-type Pokemon and creepy stuff going on. And there is a music tone. Back then, they didn't have like all the music we think of today. It was a bunch of little beeps and boobs. Essentially, the tone and frequency of those beeps was making people go, or especially children, spiral into these like dark, depressing, suicidal thoughts. And it led to several children actually taking their own lives. If you look it up now, they say that this never happened. This was all fake. Okay, that this was just something that got blown out of proportion in the media. To me, that sounds like good PR, because if you notice, they did change that tone and frequency in every other game they ever released, especially when it came over to the US and other countries the following year. They did change that tone and frequency. They actually recalled a bunch of those original games that were released in Japan as well, and then replaced them with the new updated version. So we're sitting here with Dustin at Fume Tattoo in Shawnee, Oklahoma. I'm linking his Facebook and TikTok in the comments here on this video, so definitely hit him up to get your next tattoo. Sorry, my big old bubble butt's taking like half of this video up. I would play the original frequency, but it is almost impossible to find anywhere on the internet. The updated song is still pretty creepy and eerie, but it doesn't have that frequency that psychologists says triggers that part of that brain involuntarily, especially the young minds. In fact, to the adults, it did not even sound the same, because if y'all didn't know it, there are certain noises and frequencies that only children can hear because our ear canal and our eardrums change as we get older. So many of the adults, possibly even the ones that made the game, didn't know that they were putting in this deadly frequency in it. Now, the deadliest thing by far in the Pokemon franchise, though, was Pokemon Go. If you guys don't know what Pokemon Go is, I don't know how I can help you, because everybody knows what that is. Now, where you have to go around and find all the little Pokemon in real life, walk around to where they are in the GPS, people walked into traffic, people fell off cliffs because they were trying to get just close enough to be able to catch that Pokemon and got too close to the edge and fell. There has been over 270 direct reported deaths from Pokemon Go, but how many there's been, we'll never know, because I'm sure it's countless people that had it going in their car in GPS mode, driving around in their car that accidentally got in a wreck, and then just no one ever knew that that's what they were doing when they got in that wreck. It was so prevalent that they actually had to come out with an update that made you claim that you were either the passenger or you were not driving in some way. Of course, everybody lied. I know I did while I was driving around and playing. In fact, Purdue University actually did a study where it showed anywhere where there was major Pokemon gyms or Pokestops, there was a spike in car crashes after Pokemon Go was released. This same study from Purdue University said in the first year alone that the game was released, there was more than 150,000 police officer notes about when they pulled people over for speeding, they saw that Pokemon Go was either on, or the people openly admitted that they were playing Pokemon Go and were trying to get to the Pokemon before it disappeared. Over 150,000 speeding tickets that specifically noted that. That's not how many total. That's just how many specifically noted that that was for sure the reason. Next, we're going to talk about a specific person, okay? So all these other ones have been just like massive cases about a lot of tragedies that happened. This is about a specific person, and it was one of the writers of Pokemon. His name was Takeshi Shudo, and he did unalive himself because he was very disappointed in the way that the show, the anime series, was going. If you all didn't know it, Pokemon was supposed to be really dark. Like, it was extremely dark. Okay, in the manga, the books that came out before this TV show did, the Pokemon would actually kill each other in battle. It was not just feigning or passing out like in the games. They would actually kill each other, and there are scenes of other Pokemon getting impaled completely and then buried and dying. In fact, in the Lavender Town Syndrome we talked about earlier, that town was known as the Pokemon Graveyard. That's where trainers buried their dead Pokemon at. And in the game, it even makes reference that you might have killed one of his Pokemon in the earlier part of the game, and that part of the game is confirmed in the manga. But when the anime came out, it's very lighthearted. You know, he's 10 years old or 11 years old forever, and no one ever ages. Nothing really ever major happens, and there's really no true tragedies. The manga, they are throwing it down, okay? And when you play the games, I mean, if you ever have paid attention, you are robbing everyone that you beat. If you notice, you get money for beating them. So you're beating their Pokemon, their little cute cuddly creatures, literally unconscious, and then stealing their money. That's what you're doing in the games. It was meant to be really dark. So one of the creators of the show was really upset that they took such a lighthearted direction, and he ended up drinking himself into a suicide. Now, before we get into the popular Burger King kids' toys that were really, really, really big in the 1999 and 2000 time period, we're going to talk about how Pokemon was even created, okay? So the original creator was an autistic boy that loved collecting bugs and showing them to his friends. His friends then, in turn to be kind to him, would also collect bugs, and they would trade bugs. That's where the idea of Pokemon came from. So lastly, those Pokemon toys were recalled in December of 1999 for most locations. They recalled more than 25 million of these toys because 2 infants were directly linked to suffocation. These Pokeball keychains, you guys might remember, would come apart in two pieces. And essentially, I guess, if you put them over your mouth and breathed in, it would actually make a suction to your mouth, and infant babies couldn't get it back off, and they were playing with them like a toy. And both of them, I believe, were found with that toy in their crib, which, you know, at the end of the day, that's on the parents for leaving a choking hazard in there. But, I mean, I wouldn't have guessed that they would take a Pokeball apart, stick it perfectly over their mouth, and then suck on it to make a suction over their face. But after those 2 deaths happened, Burger King did voluntarily, not court-ordered, but they voluntarily recalled, tens of millions of those toys. I said that was the last thing, but then I thought about the most highest death toll of any of this besides Pokemon Go was the actual trading cards. I know when I was little, they outlawed them in our schools. I mean, drug dealers had nothing on Pokemon cards. I mean, that's what we wanted. You know, you saw a kid walking around with a backpack hiding in the dark corner like, hey, you want some of this? He wasn't talking about getting a hit of nothing but some Pokemon cards. Those things had a chokehold on everybody, and here we are 30 years later, and it's still that way. There was Pokemon deaths from Pokemon cards all the way back in like 1998, And here we are, 2025. It's just at the beginning of January, and literally 3 days ago, there was already a Pokemon death where somebody stabbed a guy with a piece of glass over some Pokemon cards at a Target. Okay, it still has a stranglehold on the community. So that's our finished product. Like I said, guys, go see Dustin, Fume Tattoo in Shawnee, Oklahoma. He'll take care of you just like he took care of me. He did a great work on one of my favorite characters of all time. A nightmare situation happened at a funeral home in Penrose, Colorado, where over 190 bodies were actually just thrown out and discarded. And their families, when they were told they were cremated, were actually just given bags of concrete powder that had been crushed up. It was called the Back to Nature Funeral Home, and these bodies were not even refrigerated. They were left in a basement and put in refrigerators just like this, except for the refrigerator was not plugged in. The smell was so bad, people were able to smell it from the road. The husband and wife team was arrested. The husband, John, was just sentenced to the rest of his life in prison. He got 30 years for one charge and over 20 years for another charge. And at his age, he'll be in prison for the rest of his life. His wife's sentencing is going to happen later this year. They made roughly $1 million. If you take the average cost of a cremation, somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000, average that out $4,500 a person. They made about $1 million doing this scam. Nearly 200 bodies. Could you imagine, like, the amount of trauma that would have? Like, your loved one, your kids, your parents, your spouse died, to know that they were just being left rotting in a basement. And they were just, I don't know what their in-game plan was this. They were just stacking bodies in this basement. And I guess they had like some kind of landfill situation where they dug out an area on their property and they're going to just start burying the bodies. But I guess it got reported because the smell was so awful that people knew that there's something weird had to be going on. That's how it was called in. If any of our viewers are from Penrose, Colorado, or had to drive through that area, can you let us know, like, if you all smelt it? If you all thought something weird was going on? Was there, like, rumors in the town before this happened? A woman that has been missing for 24 years was just found living a few towns away under a complete new identity. Now, this is going on right now in North Carolina. She went missing in 2001, and she was just now found as of, like, this past weekend, February 2026. Her name was Michelle Lynn Hunley, and this case is going to change the way that I'm worried that all future cases are going to look at first, and it's going to slow down things because they poured millions into trying to find this woman, and she just wanted to walk away from her life. So, like, here's what happened. She told her husband and her kids she was going to go out Christmas shopping, and she just never came back. She abandoned 3 children and a husband. Every person, and I mean every single person they interviewed in all these documentaries and these biographies, everybody's like, we know that she had been kidnapped. We know she had been killed because she would never leave her kids. And apparently she did just that. And the only thing that she is giving police is there was underlying domestic issues going on that I don't want to discuss. And that's what she said. That caused her to leave her children and her husband. And that's even if it's true, because the husband has a perfectly clean record. The kids, which there's 3 of them, the friends, the family, the kids, co-workers, everybody just said, like, we never heard of a problem. Like, we've never seen them fight. No one's ever seen them argue. She's never mentioned anything to me. There was no red flags. Like, he wasn't having an affair. There's been no proof that she was having an affair. It really, truly seems like she might have just been bored of her life or, like, felt like she was stuck and wanted to just go start over. And she didn't even go that far. Like, she just went, like, a couple hours away and started a whole new life. Okay, now I've tried to research, like, did they ever find her car? Was her car ever sold? Did she legally change her name? Because wouldn't that have gone through the state system? And I don't know. There's really not a ton of information. It's still developing. But she does not want to see her family still. Like, she doesn't want to apologize to them. She does not want her location to be publicly known. In fact, she threatened to take legal action if it was like, if they told her location, because she's like, I didn't do anything illegal. I just moved away. And technically, that's right. She didn't do anything illegal, I guess. Like, the worst I guess he could do is go after her and, like, back pay and child support, I guess. Like, I don't know. But yeah, she just left. She just moved away, had a new life. And they're not releasing any details of, like, what her new name is, you know, nothing. And I'm worried that this is going to affect true crime cases going forward, because this man's name was dragged through the mud. The town thought he murdered his wife. His children were always having to be like, did dad do something? Because he was the one that reported her missing. He just happened to be alone with the kids after she went missing, and the police were like, yeah, are you sure, bud? And that's, of course, what everybody did. They all doubted him. Pretty early on in the case, he was ruled out as a suspect. But there was always this, shadow of a doubt that, he has faced his entire life. And, his kids were devastated because they're like, oh my God, our mom got found, and now we can't communicate with her. She does not want her information to be passed along to us. What? I mean, of course, they're adults now. This was 24 years ago. And the first thing people are going to say is what if there was something going on? What if he was beaten? Or okay, we don't know that. That's what people can speculate, and that's what she's saying. There's underlying domestic issues, but if it wasn't bad enough, that no physical marks were ever on her, I just can't imagine, just not taking your kids with you. If that was truly the case, why would you not run away with your children? Why would you not call the police? Why would you not get help? Her own family, her own mother and father, she dropped off the face of the earth too. Did not, just disappeared. Nothing. No communication with anyone ever, nada. I imagine this is about to make it to national news, because essentially the way this got called in is, I guess, her picture keeps getting circulated on missing people things, and since she was in the same state she went missing from, somebody eventually saw it and was just like, that's my neighbor. Hey, that is my neighbor. Somebody please come look and confirm. Police came out the next day and confirmed, and they're like, yep, that's her. I guess she's not missing anymore. So you're probably about to see this all over the national news, and I guarantee you, her new identity is going to get leaked out and her location is going to get leaked out. But, it's just, to me, that is just nuts. It's crazy that I wonder how many missing people cases we've had in the past where the person just left and just started a new life, because everybody, go watch the interviews. Everybody swore she was such a great mother. She would never leave her kids, never leave her kids, never leave her kids. That's all you heard. And there's so many cases of missing people out there where they're like, oh, they would never abandon their family. Well, apparently they would. Tonight's story is one that really gets me, and go ahead and do yourself a favor. If you're alone tonight, or you've been hearing creepy noises in your house and have been kind of spooked anyhow, skip this video. It's not going to be one you want to hear if you're spending the night alone. Right, this story happened to two young girls in Massachusetts, and this is a true story of a haunting that went horribly wrong, and it actually ended in a triple murder. Right, this story started off innocent enough. Two young teenage girls kept complaining to their dad that they were hearing knocking on the walls, that items in their room would be moved around. Their stuff would be left in places they knew they didn't leave it at. Right? Seemed innocent enough. The dad just kind of told them to hush, move on. Now, key part of this story, their mother had just passed away recently. They became convinced it was the spirit of their mother, trying to communicate with them. What they say about trying to communicate with spirits is it always invites something dark. So one night they're playing on the Ouija board, and every single time they would ask if it was their mom, boom, 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 there's these loud thuds on the walls. It sounded like people were walking. They were so freaked out and they were so scared, and they couldn't wait for their dad to get home because he worked late, and they told him about what had happened, and he got enraged. Girls, why are you playing with this Ouija board? Why are you trying to, he's hurt. He just lost his wife, and he's saying please, she's gone. She's moved on. I know this has been traumatic, and these things are, happening in your mind, in your head, because you miss your mother. I can't imagine what those girls are going through. This went on for months, and it kind of escalated. One time they walked into their bedroom, and there was a message literally on the wall that said, I see you. Terrified, they tell their dad, they show the dad the message, and then once again, the dad is just enraged. Girls, why are you doing this? I know you're screaming out for my attention, but I'm sorry. I'm a single parent. I'm working a lot. I'm trying to support us. I'm trying to put food on the table. Please stop doing this. Okay, please. We are just trying to get through life. I'm trying to live. And you're just tearing me down with all these, fake ghost stories and fairy tales. And the next morning, the girl gets out of a shower, and, the steam on the mirror had, spelled out a message. And it had said, I'm watching you always. And she's like, oh my God, this is, now the fear had kind of stopped. And she was like, this is my mother. She's looking out for me. Well, the fear had not stopped. It was about to get much worse. All right, now I'm going to pause just for a second. The story's about to get really good. I know that I do spooky stories, and when you see the lighting in the background behind me, it's dark, it's about to be spooky. But if you see lighting like this, then just know that it's about to be either informative or funny or something. You know, we do stand-up comedy now. This is like a new thing for us, okay? And we've got 2 Oklahoma shows. You can buy tickets. I'm going to put them in the comments. You can buy tickets to our July 17th show in Shawnee. And you can buy tickets to our September 23rd show in Tulsa at the Looney Bin. Let's get back to the story. All right. So she thinks this is like a good thing now. It's peaceful. It's relaxing. Oh, my mother's watching out for me. And it got real violent real quick. She would wake up in the middle of the night to stuff being thrown across her room. She woke up one time in the middle of the night and she swore she saw somebody in the corner of the room, but it was dark and her bed sheets got jerked off of her. This is terrifying at this point. It is no longer fun and games. Okay? Every single day she is experiencing extreme poltergeist activity. And then it happened. She saw the ghost. Her and her sister had, got home from school and they go up to their bedroom. And their dad was coming home early from work this day. Thank goodness. Because now he believes after what's about to happen. They open the bedroom door, and in the corner is their mother in a white wedding dress. Hair long in front of her face, veil on, it's their mother's wedding dress, but it doesn't quite look like their mom. And after they saw what they thought was their mother in the wedding dress, they screamed for their dad, and their dad comes up there too. And the dad comes in, and guess what he sees? It's a grown man in his wife's wedding dress. His name was Daniel LaPlante. He was actually a neighbor that lived not too far away, and he had been living in the walls, and now he was taking them hostage. So he took them hostage wielding an axe, okay? At some point, when he was distracted, because he was like moving them around room by room and stuff, and like trying to separate them. When he was in a different room with one of the other, the sister of the dad, I can't remember. One of the sisters was actually able to sneak out the window and run to the neighbor's house, where then they called the police. And he had been living in the walls of the house for months. And now, to try to trick the girls even further, he has put on the dress of their mother. Now, these girls actually knew Daniel LaPlante. He lived just like a couple streets over. And his own family didn't know that he'd been living in the walls there, because he was sneaking out at night, living in the walls there. And while his family was at work during the day, he was living in the walls there. And then he would go back to his house sometimes. And like when I say living in the walls, you can look up pictures and videos of the crime scene. He was like living like in this narrow wall, and all those thumps, when they were playing with the Ouija board, he could actually hear them through the wall. So when they would ask the question, "Mom, is that you?" He'd boop, boop, boop on the door. In the middle of the night, he was coming out of like the air conditioned vents, and he was yanking that off and going back in the wall real fast. He had become a master at this. Now, the triple murder. He goes to jail for this. I don't know for how long. Look it up yourself. He gets released on bail. Immediately upon being released, he picks a random family and kills a pregnant woman and her 2 daughters. So really, I guess you can call it a quadruple. And he kills them with an axe. Now, I might mention this. When the dad came in there and found him in the wife's wedding dress, he was wielding an axe at that point. He was going to kill them that day. And he was bound and determined to get that triple murder out of his system, because there had been a dad and 2 daughters. Right after he got released from jail, that's exactly what he did. That story is Daniel LaPlante. Next time your kids say that they're hearing something and they're seeing something, believe them. Because these girls went months feeling like they were crazy, thinking that their dad didn't believe them, but they knew what was they were experiencing. But because they were kids, and because they were going through this traumatic thing, no one believed them. And they were that close to being killed by an axe in their sleep. This is where I'm at when I'm telling my scary stories. Endless woods and trees as far as you can see. I think there's a house like way over there. Oh, there's that radio tower with the red blinking light you guys are always asking about. This is home. Tonight's video is going to be a true crime video that happened on Christmas in 2011. We are doing this video tonight from the jungles down in South America. I cannot overstate how much this monkey scared me when it jumped out of the trees and grabbed me. So tonight we're going to talk about the Zazelle Christmas murders. Like I said, this happened back in 2011. It started off like a normal Christmas morning where 2 very excited little girls, one 8 years old and one 3-year-old, ran to the family Christmas tree, saw that their mom and dad was sitting there on the couch with their newborn brother that was only 7 weeks old. They're very excited. The dad said, "Go ahead and open all your presents." They started opening up the presents, but they noticed that the mom really wasn't enthusiastic about them opening the presents and wasn't that excited. They didn't let it bother them. They just kept opening presents. And then eventually one of the little girls said, "Why is Mom being like this?" And the dad made the statement, "Your mother is drunk and she has ruined Christmas." And I need to add that this was their stepdad. It was the real dad to the 7-week-old boy, but it was the stepdad to the 8-year-old and the 3-year-old little girls. After he stormed out of the room saying, "Your mom is drunk and she has ruined Christmas," they went to shake the mom, and at that time they realized that she was deceased. The night before, the stepdad had actually gotten an altercation with her, and he had actually beaten her to... The next morning, he actually took her body into the living room, positioned it on the couch, put sunglasses on her face, and made it look like she was laid over sleeping, even holding the 7-week-old baby. It was kind of like, I hate to make this comparison, but if you've seen the Weekend at Bernie's movie, where they put the sunglasses on him and parade him around, that's what he had tried to deceive the children in. At some point during that morning, he realized this facade was not going to work, and at that point, he freaked out and he stormed out. Later on, the neighbors were notified because they did live in an apartment complex, and the police were called. This memory will live on forever in those little girls' lives. They are now adults. This happened in 2011, so that had been 14 years ago. But I could not imagine going through that trauma. So be thankful for the family you got and the good tidings that you'll have this Christmas. Merry Christmas Eve and Merry Christmas to all.